But the story of Zacchaeus is not the story of somebody just from 2,000 years ago. It is your story as well. You see, right this very night, Jesus is calling your name. And he doesn't care where you're at. Maybe you're up a tree or out on a limb. But he'll meet you wherever you're at. All he wants you to do is to take him in. And understand this, that when you take Jesus in, you may very well be criticized. But I say, hey, rejoice. Remember, Jesus was criticized for hanging around with the likes of me. So if you're criticized, I think you're in pretty good company. You and I were very much alike. I'm 2,000 years older, it is true. But we have the same Father, and our Father has a blueprint for each of our lives, a plan for us. Did you know that my name, Zacchaeus, actually means pure, innocent, and righteous? That's the way God wanted me to live. That was his plan for my life. But I listened to the criticisms of other people. And worse yet, I believed it. Well, I wasted a lot of time. And I made a lot of mistakes, but God never gave up on me. He sent Jesus Christ to rescue me, as he has with you, to come and to whisper in our ear. Say, the Son of God is all you need. The Son of God is all you need. The Son of God is all you need. And yet it is so hard for us. Why is it so hard for us to believe such a simple truth? I tell you, it was the same in my day. And in Jericho, we were the people who walked with Jesus. We talked with Jesus. We touched him. We ate with him. And still it was so hard for us to believe. It wasn't until a very unusual event happened after the death and resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. There was in our town two men, an old man and his only son. They were very wealthy merchants, and they sold all the products of our day, cups from the goldsmiths of Rome, jewelry cut and polished by the artisans of Phoenicia, rugs from Persia. And through the years, the father taught his son everything that he knew about the business. And the son was a good student. He could negotiate bargains in the marketplace with the older and more experienced traders. He had a good eye for business and for loving people. He was known far and wide for not only his business sense, but also his love and his caring. Well, these men were Jewish by birth, but they were Christian by culture. It came the time of the Feast of the Tabernacles. That's a time that celebrates the 40 years of wandering in the desert by the Jews. And the father sent his son out into the marketplace to buy some rams and lambs to be roasted in remembrance of the holiday. So the son went out to Jericho, and he did his father's bidding. When he had completed his duties, he was on his way home when he passed a Roman soldier beating a Jewish slave. Well, he called for the soldier to stop, but the soldier paid him no mind, and the young merchant continued to walk on, but then he stopped. He remembered he was a Christian now, a person who was dominated by love, a person who was to right an injustice whenever we saw one. And so he went back and he petitioned the soldier yet a second time. He said, please, sir, I beg of you, please don't beat this boy. And he's just a boy. He's a young boy. If you continue to beat him, you will kill him. If you kill him, he's of no value to you or anyone else. I beg of you, have mercy. But the soldier would have none of it. He grabbed the merchant by the cloth and he threw him to the ground. The merchant lay on the ground. He heard the flogging continue. He heard the cry of the young boy. He could stand it no longer. He got up. He got between the Roman soldier and the slave. He put his arm up to stop the soldier from beating him. And when he did that, the slave ran off. Now the Roman soldier was furious. Now in my day, to place your hands upon a Roman soldier is punishable by death. So that soldier was well within his rights when he drew his sword and thrust it inside to the young merchant. Watch him die in the streets of Jericho. When word got back to the father that his only son had been senselessly killed, as you can well imagine, he was overcome with grief. Tears streamed down his face. His heart pounded as if it broke through his chest. He tore at his clothing. His son, his heir, his child, his boy. Gone. Friends and family, they came and they tried to console him, but he cared nothing about food or drink. He cared nothing about business. time went on, and weeks turned to months, and months turned to years, and 1 year passed to another. And finally, after 3 years had passed by, there came a knock at the father's door. There was a young man there seeking audience with the father. He carried with him a gift covered by a cloth. He said, "Sir, you do not know me, but I knew your son. It was 3 years ago this very day he exchanged his life for mine in the marketplace." I couldn't understand why anyone would give their life for that of a slave. Then I heard that your son was a Christian. I didn't know what a Christian was. Then someone introduced me to Jesus Christ. Now I am a Christian. I was once a slave, but I've since gained my freedom. And I learned that your son loved art, so I've made my life's work to be an artisan. I've made something for you, sir. I can in no way repay you for your loss, but please, will you accept it out of gratitude for what your son did for me? Well, the father took the gift and he removed the cloth. And there in his hand was the sculptured face of his departed son. And the likeness was remarkable. As the father slowly fingered the features of his son's face, as he gazed into his eyes, it was almost as if his son had come back to life. The father shook his head to bring himself back to reality, and when he turned to thank the young artist, he was gone. Well, he took the sculpted piece of his son, and he put it in a place of honor that he may gaze upon it day after day. Every day he would come down and he would talk to his son as if he were alive again. He would remember the lessons that he had taught his son through the years, and he'd remember some of the lessons his son had taught him. He'd remember all the good times that they had, and then he'd remember some of the arguments that they had that just didn't seem to matter much now. And every day he would cry out to God, "Please let me go home. Let me be with Jesus and my son in heaven." But our good and gracious God has an appointed hour for all of us to leave. And so the old man grew older and frailer until his appointed time came. And finally, when he crossed over to be with his son, there was no one else. And so in our culture, when there are no heirs, an auction is held.